All right, you guys, hello. And I think we are live. We should be live. It says we're live. So so hi. If you're just joining me, I am Sandra Coan, and this is the second video in our four-part video series. Yay! Hi, Gabby. So yesterday we had some technical difficulties, but we have moved beyond it, and we're back. So welcome. And of course, as you join, please just take a minute to say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. And also let me know what kind of work you do. I'm curious to see what kind of photographers we have in the group and where you are coming from. So what kind of photography do you do and where do you do it? And we'll just do that as people are loading or joining the live here. Also, if you're watching on the replay, I know not everybody can make these live events. So if you're watching on the replay, just say hello. Let me know you're watching on the replay by typing in replay. And then also share where you're from and what kind of work you do. So listen, I have notes here because I don't want to get off track, and there's a real point and purpose to these lives. So this is what I'm doing. Again, if you don't know me, I'm Sandra Coan. I am a newborn and family photographer, portrait photographer from Seattle, Washington, and I'm also an educator, and I teach photographers how to create a beautiful natural light look with strobes and flash. I've been teaching that, strobes and flash for probably, 5 or 6 years now, a while. And when I started teaching, I taught exclusively to film photographers. I'm a film photographer, and I knew that there was a big need in that niche in the industry to learn about lighting and how to do it with film cameras. I've since gone on to include more information in my lessons for hybrid photographers and digital photographers. So basically, no matter what kind of work you do, if you're a film photographer, hybrid or digital, you're in the right place. This is for you, and thanks for being there. So in my last video, so the point of this whole series is to come in and just teach some little mini lessons around lighting and studio lighting. And I decided to do this because over the years, I feel like I get the same questions and the same concerns over and over again that I'm hearing from other photographers. So I thought, why not just come in and do like a whole series Facebook Lives around this, and we can talk about this. So in my last video, we started the conversation off by talking a lot about, how walking into a low light situation or being in a low light situation actually affects us. So I know from my own life and from my own work that it is when you're in a low light situation, you're trying to make that work, that it is more than just how it's going to affect your photo. Yes, it's going to affect your photo, but there's also ways that not knowing how to handle those kind of situations hurt us personally, they hurt our brand, and they hurt our business. And so that's what we talked about in our last video. And just to recap, in case you missed that one, I shared that when I was first starting out, I was really, really good at working with natural light. I was a natural light photographer for 12 years in my business. I worked exclusively with natural light, and I was really good at it, and it was something I was proud of. And when I had plenty of natural light, I could create really beautiful images. But when I didn't, I struggled. And not having that light and not knowing how to handle those low light situations really caused me a lot of undue stress in my business and in my life. It made me feel like a fraud. It felt like bad because as a professional photographer, I felt like I should be able to walk into any situation and be able to create beautiful images. That was my job. And when I wasn't able to do that, it made me feel bad. It made me feel bad for myself. It made me feel bad for my clients, like I was letting people down. But it also affected my business. My brand was, that of a natural light photographer. I was producing these beautiful light-filled images. Those were the images that were on my website, on my portfolio. That's what my clients expected of me. And when I couldn't produce that, you know, I would sometimes end up with unhappy clients. Like I said, I was unhappy about that. But I'd also hurt my business because in order to get that and make sure that I was getting those kind of photos, I'd spend a lot of time watching the weather reports and trying to schedule around the weather and what the weather was going to do, which is just not always feasible and not always doable. And so I would have to reschedule a lot. I'd have to cancel a lot. It was just a big mess. Now, if you want that whole story, you can go watch the video that we did, the last video that we did. Today, I want to talk about why I did that for so long. So like I said, I was really stuck in this cycle of beautiful weather meant beautiful photos, not beautiful weather meant meh photos, photos I wasn't super proud of, photos that didn't necessarily fit my brand. And I stayed in that cycle for a very long time, like 12 years. It was, yeah, right? So Gabby's saying, especially the weather in Seattle. Yeah, absolutely. So I stayed in that cycle for a really long time, for 12 years. And I know personally that the reason that I did do that was because I had a lot of fear and misconceptions and kind of bought into a lot of myths around artificial lighting and what it looked like and what it meant to work with it, that I now know are actually pretty common because I talk to other photographers all the time. So that's what I want to talk about today. All right, so let's dive into it. Now, some of the biggest myths and misconceptions that I see around artificial lighting, and feel free as you're watching to share whatever beliefs that you may have about artificial light. But for me, one of the biggest was the belief that artificial lighting was ugly. So raise your hand, send me a little emoji or whatever if you've ever felt that, or you do feel that way. It's okay. I totally did. I thought that artificial lighting was ugly. I thought that if you used strobes and flash, it looked like strobes and flash, where it was like super harsh. It had that flashy look, and it just wasn't pretty. I wanted soft and natural, which is why I worked, with natural light for as long as I did. But the truth is that when you actually know how to use lighting, the equipment and the settings, you can really, right? Okay, so Kevin's saying, yes, that's me. But when you know how to use it, it doesn't have to be ugly. In fact, it can be just as beautiful, just as soft, and just as natural looking as window light. And I know this because now that I've known how to do it, like 99% of the work I produce is done with artificial lighting. And a lot of people don't know that. I have clients who come in that say that they book me because they love the bright, natural look of my photos and the natural light look of my photos. And then I'm like, yeah, I do too, but surprise, I'm creating that. So it can be done. And that is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about teaching this. Is because I know it can be done. And when you learn how to do it, it's like actually life-changing. It takes you out of that place that we were just talking about stress, about not being able to produce, quality images all the time. All of that kind of stuff goes away, and it's really, really easy. So the other myth that I know people have a lot of, and I see you guys are saying yes, that you also hate that flashy look, and I get it. It can be really ugly. Nobody wants that. Another of the myths, misconceptions around artificial lighting I hear all the time is that it's really expensive. And this is one that I hear probably, I was going to say the most often, but maybe second. I think the first one is that lighting is ugly. Second one is lighting is expensive. And so I'll hear from people all the time, like, yes, I know, I really should bring this into my business. I struggle in natural light or in low light situations too. It's really terrible. It causes me all the stress. It's hurting my business. Yes, yes. However, I'm a small business and I can't afford to get studio equipment or to get started. And I get it. I am a small business too. And when I was first learning all of this, I wasn't making the money in my business that I'm making now, that struggle is real. I 100% get it. But the truth is, lighting doesn't have to be expensive. There are a lot of options out there if you're on a budget. I mean, just looking into used gear is a great way to do it. I know personally, the first lighting setup that I ever invested in and I ever bought cost me less than $300, you guys. And the benefits far outweighed the expense. So if that's a block that you have, or if that's something that you're telling yourself all the time, just know that it's not necessarily true. Now, I wanted to talk about blocks about this because that's where I'm going into in the next part. So the other thing I hear from people all the time is some variation of lighting is hard, or I'm scared of it, or I just don't even know where to begin. And I actually think that all of these myths that we're telling ourselves, lighting is ugly, it's too expensive for me, it won't work for me because I work in client's home, or I work on location, or I don't have a studio, or I have a small studio, or lighting is hard, like all the things that we all tell ourselves, they're really kind of the same thing. It's just about fear. So this is what I know about being a human being, because I am a human being, is that as humans, we like to stay in our comfort zones. We like to take something that we know and just kind of hang out there because it feels safe. And honestly, that's part of that little like lizard brain that we all have. Like our lizard brain is trying to keep us all safe. And so hanging out in that place of comfort feels good to our bodies. And that's why we're all so wed to using natural light, because natural light feels safe. It's something that we've actually grown up with, right? Our whole lives. We can see it. It's intuitive. You walk into a room and you see window light, and you know how to use it. And artificial light doesn't feel that way. And so that pushes us outside of that comfort zone area and brings up all the feelings, which is why we come up with all these excuses that it's not going to work for us. I mean, that's what it is if we're being honest. And my argument is, and what my favorite thing to teach people is, you guys, yes, that's scary out there, but it's actually not that hard. It's actually not that expensive. No matter what kind of work you do, this is going to benefit you. And it's not only going to benefit your images, it's going to benefit your brand, and it's going to benefit your business. Now, my favorite thing to share, and where am I at? I'm trying to keep these, you guys, under 15 minutes. I'm right at 12 minutes. But this is what I want to tell you, is that yes, those fears are real. Yes, there's an element of truth into all the things that you're telling yourself, but there is a workaround. Marie Forleo, who's one of my favorite online mentors, even though I've never met her, she's changed my life. She always says everything is figure outable, and it's 100% true. There is a workaround to all this thing. And here's the best part. This part I love sharing with people. You actually already know most of what you need to know to learn how to create beautiful light with strobes and flash. You already do, because you already know how to see light. That's part of your gift as a photographer. And you guys, if you can work with the sun shining through a window, you can absolutely work with a bulb shining through a softbox, okay? The same rules apply. Light is light. All you really need to learn are a few systems and a few tips and tricks to be able to do that. But the hard part, the being able to see light, you've already got that. So just like acknowledge your fear, acknowledge your blocks around it, and then trust me when I can tell you that you already know the hardest part. So I'm going to save that for the next video. So in the next video, I'm going to really dive into this idea that light is light. You already know most of what you need to know to be able to create beautiful light with strobes and flash. And I'm going to walk you through how to do that. All right. So I'm going to be back here in just a little bit, and we'll do the second part of the video. Now, in my first video, I mentioned that my goal with these lives is to create a conversation around lighting in our community, sort of like a book club. You know how like you go to a book club and you read a chapter or a couple chapters, and then you all get together and you discuss it and you drink a lot of wine, but you also discuss it. Well, that's what I want to do, minus the wine part. I mean, or you can bring wine, I don't care. But I would love to invite you to come in to my private Facebook group. It's a group full of other photographers just like you, and let's have this conversation. Let's talk about the blocks. Let's talk about the fears. Let's be honest about why are we holding ourselves back? Why are we holding back our gifts, you know, and hiding behind, well, I'm a natural light photographer. What's really going on there? And let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. And then I hope to see you all back for the third video in our 4-video series where we talk about light is light, and I'm going to show you how you actually already know most of what you need to know. All right. So Gabby just added the link to that Facebook group. I hope to see you there. And I also hope to see you back here in my next live. All right, you guys, have a great day.